is a key preference. Obviously, but then a lot of the organizations and the programs proposing to take community referrals, I find that kind of criteria gets really ambiguous. So I'm happy. I feel like it is eligible and it meets that, our overall eligibility. It has less. It isn't. There's some elements of the proposal that aren't as strong. Building community partners. And again, I come back to the challenges with a program that's just had this sort of 6-month planning versus others that have been in the development for longer. And so to me, it kind of goes in that lower tier of proposals that are just not as strong as some of the others.
Okay, so it sounds like you're in agreement with moving the ranking down. Is there anyone that disagrees with that? I'm not seeing anyone, so I think unless someone speaks up, we're gonna move this down in the ranking, more towards the resolve and neighbor to neighbor under the last two that we just looked at. Oh, my screen just did something weird. Can you still see the presentation? Okay, it's just my screen then. I apologize. Okay, so we'll do that. So the next one, in terms of, pure score, that's how they were ordered in this presentation, was restorative roots. So are there any comments, disagreements, with the staff analysis? Do you want to change the ranking on this one, or do you agree with its position?
I was a little concerned about the budget on this one, primarily around some of the staffing. It read to me when I was looking through it more like we were staffing a whole organization, and not that we aren't in some ways with certain programs, but more than supporting a program, the fact that communications staff was going to be working 100% of the time, the executive director was 100% of the time on these projects, and that seemed excessive to me, for this type of program.
I think that's a great point. Did you have any concerns about the ranking at this point? Because we'll get to the budget
Fair enough.
in the next part.
I did feel that there was still a lot of unknowns with the program. So I first read this proposal, initially I ranked it much higher, but then this time reading through in their answers, I still felt there were a lot of unknowns that weren't as clear to me, which I was kind of disappointed reading through because I had ranked it much higher the first time around.
Okay, and I think Elaine has her hand up next.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to not be thinking about the budget tied a little bit around the ranking. So it's kind of tricky. I'll just admit that.
It's all tricky. I think that's the takeaway is the whole thing is tricky.
I did find it really compelling that they would use this effort to address the unrepresented cases that are not. I mean, I just thought that was a really innovative approach. I couldn't tell, and I was going back to look. I couldn't tell whether there is really agreement in the community to support that going that way, because if there was, if I could see Multnomah County District Attorney's sort of memorandum of agreement that says, hey, this is the ticket we've been waiting for, is to use restorative justice processes to sort of draw that down, I would have been super excited about that. But I can't tell, and maybe somebody else can in the material that's been presented, that they have really strong support for using this model that way, because that really would change the even the feeling about the budget, and the high staff FTE that they're proposing, if that's what's happening. And I mean, because you'd really need a lot of folks right up front to handle a lot of that sort of assessment and processing to happen. So to me, it would make it more in alignment, and I can't tell that.
Simon, what's your comment?
My comment is, I feel like, I mean, again, I feel like this is one of the existing programs that's undergoing a pretty significant shift in sort of its focus or incorporating new elements, which I think are very good. I think this unrepresented is a really innovative area to pursue, and yet it's a big change, and therefore I don't know if it merits. And then like I put that in also in this context of a very large budget, pretty much funding an entire, all of these areas, and so it kind of then scores lower in my kind of thinking of how successfully, where's it going, and the evidence. I think there's been other proposals that have stronger demonstrations of those community partners already, some of these streams and partnerships already set up. So it could merit, it could merit an investment into some of these areas, but certainly not at the level that's here, because I think other parts of the proposal are in serious question.
So this is sort of in the middle rank right now. They're sixth in the list in terms of scoring. Do we want to move them up or down, or do you think they're kind of a middle range application? What I'm kind of envisioning now, based on how we're going through this, is there's going to be, the high ranking applications, group A, middle ranking, group B, lower ranking, group C, and then we'll figure out what to do with them there. That's what popped into my head, but we can not do that too. But currently right now they're in the middle. So do we want to move them from the middle to higher or lower?
I think middle is personally fine by me. I wouldn't rank it at all higher.
Okay.
I might be inclined to, I wouldn't necessarily put it at the bottom of our list by any means. But I think, for instance, like our Six Rivers proposal, I felt was a stronger proposal.
Okay. And Elaine?
Yeah, sort of similarly, where in that middle section it kind of comes is gonna matter. And so I wouldn't put it at the top of the middle either, just however that shakes out. Yeah.
The middle of the middle.
The middle of the middle sounds great.
Okay, so we'll leave it in that middle category now. And I think so far how it is we've indicated Six Rivers is a higher ranking applicant. Mid ranking is TJC, CDR, and then Restorative Roots. And then there's a lower ranking group that's Stand in Restorative Justice, Neighbor to Neighbor, and Resolve. And those are kind of how they're playing out so far. So let's go ahead and move through the rest of this. And the next one is conflict artistry. So this is, again, sort of higher end of the middle. Do folks agree with that as a position on this rank list? Or do you have concerns or questions outside of what's depicted here? Elaine?
Well, I'll be abstaining from conversation.
Thank you for that. So are we good with the middle ranking? Simon, looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Anyone else with comments or desire to, or recommendation to change either a higher or lower ranking for this applicant? Nope. All right. So in that case, they're going to remain in the middle in that second grouping that we've sort of established. And CDR is the next one. So again, we're going up. So they're a little bit higher in the staff scoring. We did note that they didn't meet one of the preferences. So were there any concerns or comments for CDR? Beyond what we already discussed.
I know we don't have a standard, but the case hours seem really low for this project and for what they're trying to accomplish. And I need to go back and look at the sort of number of cases, but it was interesting reading their final report. That was useful to read, and it also left some additional kind of questions in my mind about sort of outcomes based on what they've done so far.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes me want to move it down per se, but I was just left with low case hours, high cost of a program, and not clear yet about. And they did say right up front that this is less than a year's worth of data, and so it's looking promising. And they did submit more information than maybe we got from other people. So just to acknowledge that.
Yep. So right now they're still in the middle category, and it sounds like there wasn't necessarily a proposal to change that. So are we good with that ranking? There were concerns about CDR voiced earlier about them not meeting the eligibility related to pre-adjudication, and they don't prioritize services to participants. That's how they were marked down at 6 out of 7 in that preferences score. Are those still concerns? Because if we're being consistent, that might actually move them down.
I believe I got some additional clarification from our discussion earlier regarding the post-adjudication. I would say that the concern about not providing direct services to program participants is still a concern for me.
Okay.
And so I probably would lower them down a little bit.
Out of the middle category?
No, I might still leave them in the middle category, but not at the top of the middle category.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or concerns with CDR? No. All right. So yeah, so that one will be in the middle category as well. So the next application is Center for Mediation and Dialogue. So are there any considerations outside of the staff scoring that you folks want to put on record and maybe move this in the ranking up or down?
I really like this proposal. My only real note was that they mentioned that they weren't taking felony cases.
Okay, and that was a preference that they didn't.
That is a preference, yes.
Yeah. And Simon or Elaine, was your hand up first?
Simon can go first.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a strong proposal, and really, as Kathleen just said, that's to note. It is targeting sort of lower level offenses, but it's a very well structured, well thought through, good evidence base of their kind of development. Whether that means it scores higher or lower, I don't know, but just that note that it won't be taking some of that preference on those higher level cases, and hopefully it can grow to that.
Right now, I believe they're third since we got rid of CCRS. We deem them ineligible. So they're in the higher ranked category. So would you want to keep them in the highest ranked category or move them to the middle category?
Let me just say a thing.
Okay.
It's interesting to me that they they say we do not have direct staffing or funding to provide additional support services outside of the RJ services to harm parties. I did note that they have a strong partnership with victim services, which may mitigate some of that. But it was curious to me that they didn't ask for funding as part of their proposal for direct services. So I found that a little confusing, that they didn't address how they would really provide for the needs of harmed parties, while also saying that they didn't include or don't have funding for those resources. So I just found that a little confusing. I did also notice the same thing, that they would have no presumptive prison time, but I also really appreciated the case for the possibility of reducing the potential for increased sentences. That was a really compelling component of this application. I thought that municipal cases actually can lead to longer sentences and to sentences period because of the repetition, and that this would intervene at that point. So I felt that was compelling, and it helped it meet the requirements, but I was also concerned about the lack of direct support for harmed parties.
Okay, noted. And I think Simon is next.
Yeah, I guess if I'm thinking on, our criterion pieces, if Six Rivers was not in the top category tier, then this shouldn't be. Or Six Rivers, I think, is a stronger proposal if we're doing I'm just using one example. Like, I don't know where we're moving things in ranking and if it really matters at all anyway.
So Six Rivers is in the top now. So
in
we
the
moved
top,
that,
all right.
yeah, we moved that to the category A top applicants. So this can stay there. That's where CMD is right now. I can stay there, or it can move down based on their feedback, your feedback.
Jimena has her hand up. I'd love to hear.
Jimena, what was your comment?
Hi, I just wanted to say that even though we are one of the named partners here, we're not like we're just part of the universe of providers in Washington County. But and Elaine, to the comment of not having direct services, I actually, when I was reading this, I appreciated not including that for those who've been harmed, those direct services, because that to me speaks of the careful respect for the needs of those who've been harmed, and those being referred to those agencies that can best care for them, instead of just providing like, oh, you need rent, I'll send you to the rent, I'll give you rental assistance. So I will navigate you to that agency that can provide that. So with the wraparound support, the holistic care, the culturally appropriate services, all of that. So them not including that actually shows a lot of understanding on how to best serve community in my eyes as a community provider. So that shows a lot of understanding of how to work with community. So I like that. And sometimes you see client assistance included there. I'm like, and when it's like $2,000, like, oh, they don't know. It's not a bus ticket.
Yeah,
so,
thank you for that perspective.
So it sounds like they should maybe stay in this higher category rank. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, I see nodding. Okay, we're getting close to the end of this first step in the ranking process. So we're just trying to move forward. All right, so they'll stay there. So CCRS, we already discussed. The Lutheran Community Services Northwest is the next one. So they are in the high category already. They are our second highest score overall based on the staff analysis. Do you folks agree with that? Do you think they should remain in this high category, or are there concerns or preferences not met? Simon?
My reaction is similar. As an existing program that is a lot of shift. Yeah, I guess I feel that this is not as strong as the score you've given it. I would put it in the lower category. I have a real concerns on like some of the others as far as just kind of the budget as far as the staffing levels to deliver the types of outcomes. And again, I think with kind of proposing a significant shift of program strategy, it didn't convince me and provide, I think, strong evidence of that all being in place to deliver on.
So would you propose to move it to like the middle ranking group, or are you saying you think it's more on par with the lower ranking group?
I think it's lower middle or upper lower.
Okay. And do other folks have thoughts on that? Elaine?
Simon, can you say in this one, is the new sort of foray that they're undertaking the connection more with the Portland Police Bureau? Is that kind of what you're seeing as kind of new territory for them, or is it something different?
No, I think it's because I think that's been where they've been. That was the existing, and that's where seeming, and that's where they've struggled. Is that relationship, and I think what they're proposing is a pivot more to the community referral model, which obviously a number of programs are doing. Yeah, and I just found it less convincing, as it were, not so strong.
So as you mentioned, we do have a number of applicants that are doing that shift towards more community referrals. We didn't have them not meeting, it looks like they meet all the preferences and criteria. So are there any other like specific concerns related to those things that might bump them down? It looks like Himna has her hand up again.
Yes, I actually really like this application and that they provided the MOU with Portland Public Schools. I didn't see that level of description of how youth will be referred from the schools specifically in any of the other applications. And being aware of the landscape in Multnomah County, it worries me that there isn't anything right now at that level. And I think they are going to be filling a gap here with this. So yeah, it that's what it is. All of the other ones, they are mentioning youth by default, like it often happens with these programs, right? Like, oh, adults and juvenile, but to the level of involvement and partnership that it requires to do work with youth and in schools, I think they've done the work with an MOU that is updated to July, which indicates perhaps it can happen this school year. So those are my thoughts. I really did like this application with the answers, with the additional answers and the MOUs from this summer. So
it sounds like we have a couple different opinions here on whether this stays in the high ranking or gets moved to the middle.
I think I was pleased with a lot of the additional detail that they provided. And I understand that we don't have like criteria for the number of cases, but I was unclear, given some of these changes, really what they projected to be their number of cases that they were going to be going forward with. I think I thought it was a good proposal. I would not necessarily have rated it as high as CJC staff did. I would probably put it in that middle category, probably on the upper side of that middle category from my viewpoint.
So we have 2 for the middle category. Are folks more in agreement with that? Okay.
It's a little arbitrary where the bottom of the high and the top of the middle is, but
we'll have to figure that out next.
We will, but I agree, sort of towards the top of the middle or the bottom of the top. Either way.
So we'll put it in the middle category for now, because that seems to be where there's more consensus. So we're at the top of our list now, the shoots. So staff analysis rated them very high. Do folks have any concerns? Do they feel that the shoots needs to move to the middle or lower category, or should they stay in the high category? Simon?
Don't all speak at once.
We're all getting tired at this point. We've got an hour left, guys. We can do it.
No, it's one of it's a strong proposal. I think they score into the higher category like a number of the others, and they're in the right place.
Okay. And Elaine?
It's the same concern I've registered before, and that is just how much it is a system-focused proposal. I really appreciate how much of their budget they are pushing out into other service providers. That was a mitigating factor for me in ranking it higher versus lower. But the level of system crossover, I have also really appreciated some of the clarification around how they sort and protect confidentiality and information flow. But I don't feel convinced that there won't be leakage, and just because of the small, I mean, it's not a very populous county, and to have people know each other. And so I do find this one just a little bit rubbing me. It's a well-written, very well thought out proposal. And if it works and the DA is doing it in the way that it is set in this application, I think there should be a lot of DAs doing this, but I don't know how to feel completely secure in the proximity to the system that it occupies.
And your comments are absolutely noted. As you stated, they don't necessarily tie into any of the criteria or preferences. So are you okay with their ranking in the high category, or is that enough of a concern to move them down?
No, I think it's okay for them to stay. I think the other big thing that comes with being a DA-based program is just the cost of FTE, and I wish we could pull everybody else up instead of complaining about the ones that have high budgets. But this budget's really high. The county's not that populous, and partly what we're paying for are the admin costs and the functioning of the criminal justice system. And I don't really like putting money that direction. So I can't move it based on anything that is within our criteria, but that I find a challenge.
Well, let's save those budget concerns for the next part of this conversation. So as we stand now, we have 2 that we voted are ineligible, Union County and CCRS. We have 3 that are in the Group A, what we're calling Group A, 6 Rivers, CMD, and Deschutes. We have 5 that are in the middle category, TJC, CDR, Restorative Roots, Conflict Artistry, and LCNSW. And then we have 3 that were indicated as being lower ranking, stand-in restorative justice, neighbor to neighbor, and resolve. So we have a couple of different ways we can move forward. We can, determine to only fund Group A and Group B. We can determine to fund a proportion of things for Group A and Group B and Group C, depending on that ranking. There's a couple of ways to move forward. So where are folks at? Because we still will not be able to fund all of them. And we did choose not to do scaled ranking previously, so sticking with just the initial scenario 1, we would not fund maybe the ones in Group C, but let's choose to fully fund until we run out of money, or do percentage cuts or something like that. If we do scaled ranking, we'll have to go in and I'll let you guys talk. Elaine?
Yeah, my thought is to lean into the work that the applicants put into looking at where their priorities are, knowing that there's a good chance that some would be cut, landing at their 20% cuts, and then seeing where that leaves us in terms
We already took the 20% cuts completely out for everyone. That was part of the
Okay,
initial
so that's
staff
all right. So
analysis.
so any
Gone, yeah.
more cuts will be cuts beyond that.
So yeah, that
Okay.
was in the step 2 of the staff analysis. So
All
that's
right.
already into consideration.
All right, I pull back. I would rather fund people at the level they need to be funded and see where we land, but that might require more detailed sorting.
So can we take a quick, wait, do folks agree with that? We might need to take a staff break to figure out the feasibility and what we're doing on our side. So, and Michael, it looks like your hand's up.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Can you tell me who's in group C again, please?
Group C is stand-in RJ, neighbor to neighbor, and resolve. Those were the ones that were indicated as being lower ranking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Simon?
I guess in this very unenviable position we're in, again, to reiterate that there's twice as much of funding request than there is money available. It might, I guess I would lean towards not considering those in group C. I also think that there's some in the group B that I think could look at a considerable change or cut to a higher cut to their budget than others, given some of the uncertainties or the questions around what they're proposing and the changes, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I would say I don't think it has to be an equal. We've already done the 20% cut and all of that already, so that's gone through.
Right.
But I think that I would recommend that the committee considers some of the other cuts that we're going to have to make if we, two programs is not every program has to be cut in the same way. And of course, they can, once the CJ, if that gets through, then they can respond to the CJC and say that we can't deliver on this and or choose to do something, have some other response to that. I don't know.
So it sounds
Sorry
like your proposal would be to not fund Group C and then either to fund until we run out of money through groups A and B, or to do some type of percentage split. And we could figure out exactly what that might look like if we took a break.
No.
I think Michael had his hand up as well.
My question was just, I kind of like the idea of maybe taking a break and you guys can see. I get the idea of funding fully as much as we can, but I would hate to see some that are, especially people that have gotten money before, all of a sudden get nothing.
Yeah, so what we can do is we can take a quick break, look at what it would look like to fully fund Group A down the list, or do some type of percentage. So, Group A might get some percentage of cuts and Group B gets some slightly higher percentage of cuts. Elaine?
Yeah, I thought I heard Simon saying something a little bit different. I thought I heard that that there may be not a standard percentage that we would apply evenly across the board, but that we would look at the specific budgets of each to have thoughts about a different way to do them. And so that's really different than having you need to figure out the money that's left, but I think that leaves a little bit more room. I don't know how, if you just go on a break and you just look at the total that's left and you say fund everybody in Group A at 100% and then everybody in Group B at 80%, then there's just going to be a line where the money runs out. And it sounds like Simon was proposing maybe a little more nuance than that, looking at the budgets all the way down to the, not funding the Group C, but then looking at the budget options within those other organization or those proposals to see where we might build some capacity and lose less.
So what I'm hearing is everyone is in agreement so far about the Group C not getting funded. How we proceed forward. So we do need some overarching strategy to make sure the cuts are equitable across the groups. We can go in more detail and rank them within those A and B groups and figure out some funding based on that. We can't just go in and necessarily, I mean, we can go in and cut line items, but to just maintain consistency, we like to do things like say we're not going to fund training and then take out all the training line items across the board rather than just going in and saying, well, this program doesn't get training and this program does. So for consistency's sake, if we have an overarching strategy for how we're going to do those reductions, once we get rid of the C group, we are in a much more defensible, consistent position. And Tristan, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, comment on process, not commenting on any application. I think, yeah, go do the break. What would be helpful is to know kind of total amount requested in high category, but then also the individual budgets. And then same for the middle category, what is the total, but also breakdown by individual budget. One thing that I am cautious about when it comes to cutting budgets is that some of these programs are established programs and others are pilots. And so it's a little bit like we're comparing apples and oranges if we say 30% cut across for middle, because 30% might be possible for programs that are more developed, and 30% for a program that's brand new that's suggesting a pilot might mean it can't operate. So that's just a word of caution, but I think that at this point I would say let's see where the numbers shake out, but also do it itemized, so or like itemized by program, so that we can see the specifics of what each program that we are opting or kind of preliminary opting to fund at this point where they land.
So if we fully funded categories A and B, just a real quick off the cuff math, we would still have about 1.5 million left to cut. Simon, you have your hand up.
Just, I really want to be clear if I'm understanding when you say fully funded, that's already taking out the 20% scenario that they modeled themselves.
Fully funded at the base level, which is all the CJC cuts that you folks already
All the
approved.
CJC cuts.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sorry about the
Yep.
terminology.
Yep. Okay.
So
I then just, sorry, and then so A, that was clarification to make sure I understood that. And then B, I agree with Tristan. I don't, this is weird to say, but I think the role of the grant committee would be to propose some, where one potential program could be cut, and again, it could be cut at a higher percentage than another one, in the sense that its service will be sustainable in some way. It's going to obviously be reduced from what they propose. We know that. Whereas another one is, if they had the same percentage cut, it's just not going to be deliverable, and therefore you don't actually have anything, and it's just basically wasting public money in that sense.
okay, Minna, you have your hand up.
I also want to mention that if we're going to be doing this, we're going to be cutting even further. It is the right thing to go back to those who've submitted their applications and ask them to revise the scope of work, because we're going to be asking them to deliver something that we're not going to be able to fund. And we're making these decisions on what they're going to do, and we're not going to be able to fund them. So I'm seeing like staff personnel here, staff wages, all of that here under budgets. And now we're saying, oh, we're going to fund you at 50% or whatever it is that we come up with the math, and the outcomes cannot be the goals. We cannot do that. So I think I don't even know that it makes sense for us to be making these decisions. Like, I think, Rima, if you can give us a sense of what there is and what this, I think the folks need to submit another round of answers with the new dollar amount because
So
this wouldn't be feasible for them. Like if they're thinking of they're paying an executive director, right? And we're not going to be able to fund that. You know, things are going to shift, right? There are leases, there are a lot of things. So that's
right. So how this process works for other grant programs and what we would probably propose to do here to try and turn things around quickly is we would, once we go through all the budgets and approve the amounts, the applicants get a chance to revise their budgets and move things around only within the approved categories. So they can't add categories, but they can make changes to the amounts or the units based on that final dollar amount that we are recommending for them. If they have to make changes to their scope of work, I mean, if it's too significant, we would have to present that to the commission at the same time that we are asking for the award. So it kind of depends on how much of a change that they're going to need to make. But that's generally how we do it with this type of cuts. And I see a thumbs up. So just for informational purposes, if we did a across the board 85% cut for the remaining baseline for the group A and a 65% cut for the C, we would still have $2,000 to cut, but that just kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. So
by cut you mean the amount you would fund. So you would fund the top three at 85% after the 80%. So 85% of the 80%, and then the next group 65% of the 80%. Okay, so I think I'm going to just lean back into what Tristan said early on, and that is, I think we need to look at them one at a time and figure out who we're going to fund and who we're not going to fund.
Okay, so in that note, what we've been discussing is to not fund that group C, the lower ranking applicants. Do we want to go ahead and take a vote to say that we're not going to fund them at this point, so then we can focus in on the group A and B?
I would move to not fund group C.
Do we have a second for that?
I will second, sadly.
Okay, so Avery, do you mind doing a roll call vote for us, please?
Yeah. Brandon Brown,
Agree to not fund Group C.
Elaine Walters,
Agree.
Kathleen Meehan Coop,
Agree.
Shannon Wilson,
Agree.
Simon Fulford,
Agree.
Michael Kaiser,
Pardon me, yes.
Tristan Edwards,
Abstain.
Jimena Ospina Todd.
Agree.
Okay, so now we can go into the individual applications. I do want to note the time, so if we can try and keep this moving along, that'd be great. We have 34 minutes left. So let's go ahead and get into the A. Do we want to start with the A group?
I need a 2-minute break.
Okay.
2
That's
minutes.
fair. Why don't we come back at 12:30? All right. See you guys in a few.
I'm gonna switch to my phone and my headset because I have to make it to a 1:05 appointment. All right, so I'll be on the call, but not on the computer. Is that okay with everybody?
All right, 12:31. Our folks, I'm seeing most faces back. So we're doing a line item review of the applications that we have decided, at least at this stage, are fundable. So do we want to start with the shoots, the rank A folks, and move down? Yes? All right, I see somebody nodding. I'm going to take it as a yes. So here is a list of their line items. So as I mentioned, you know, we always prefer to have some type of consistent methodology that applies to you know, across the board to grantees. For example, with our specialty courts grants, we often limit supplies or training costs. Since we're still trying to get rid or to cut about 1.5 million, you know, I think we will have to look at personnel because some of the other funds are lower relative to the personnel costs. But if there's any specific category that you folks think are not maybe supporting direct services and could be cut across the board or could be capped across the board, now is the perfect time to discuss that. We could make those changes. Or if you want to just cut specific line items. And I apologize for the fact that the slides are not that pretty and are not lined up very well. We just had to slap on what we could in that break we had earlier. So looking at Deschutes, do we have any conversation, concerns, suggestions for cuts across the board or for this program specifically?
I just want to, this is Shannon Wilson.
Shannon.
I know we talked about this like when we first received grant application from this program, and with the language of ability to collaborate, being one of like the markers, right? Collaborate with other partners. I just noticed in this application, kind of just, you know, this is just my defense attorney nature, but there's a lot of gatekeeping and control and being liaison between folks and kind of controlling all the aspects of it. It just doesn't really have a collaborative feel to it. And then another thing is, you know, it's interesting to me and a little bit concerning that if these programs fall under essentially like DA discretionary diversion, that we're funding entire positions or at least half of those positions just for the DA to exercise something that they're obligated to do anyways in their position. And so it feels like a financial incentive for them to just do their job. And so that in this program in particular, where there's such a clear divide between funds directly to the district attorney's office and then remaining funds to other collaborative partners, I would prioritize the funding for collaborative partners, those in the community, over something that's already being funded in the DA's office.
Sorry, thank you for that. And just so we're all on the same page, this blue column here is what is currently allotted based on those CJC preliminary cuts. So the blue column is what's left in their budget, you know, subtracting out the unallowables and the things that they identified themselves to potentially cut. It sounds like maybe you're recommending reducing the FTE or some of this personnel cost up here. and maintaining this direct services, case management, and RJ Circle management down here. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you for
Okay.
summarizing that.
And Elaine, it looks like your hand is up.
Yep, I would agree with that sort of approach to this budget, 100%.
So that it looks like they have 3.25 FTEs. Are you recommending to take one of those out, reduce the total?
Well, I have a question based on what was just said, and that is the degree to which the victim advocate and the deputy district attorneys are already potentially funded or responsible. So this looks like there is an EAP victim advocate that is specific to this project that is kind of an allocated. But that's a pretty high price tag for an advocate. You know, that is somebody that ties them into specifically victim services funds. If they operate like the other victim advocates in the DA's office, I'm just curious about that. So I guess the proposal in my mind would probably be something like take a cut out of the personnel that is for the DA staff and let them decide how they're going to organize their staffing around meeting the needs of this program for, again, the number of people they are proposing to serve. You know, so I would lean into what was said by Jimena earlier, which is potentially the numbers that they are able to serve need to change if they take big cuts to some portion of their budget. But I would let them tell us. So I would propose making a certain cut to those categories, and then let them tell us what they can do and how much it will cost without taking cuts in the direct services or the RJ pieces of this project.
So as with any of our grantees, and like we mentioned earlier, they do have the ability to move funds around among approved categories once they are awarded. So that's something they always can do. We can just do an off the top percentage cut. You know, their total ask or allotted at this point is 888,215. So we could do just a percentage off of that and then let them move the funds around. And then the other option is to take out specific line items, in which case they wouldn't necessarily be able to add those back in because they're no longer approved line items, if that makes sense. So, you know, those are kind of the options we have. Take a percentage or remove specific line items.
I think I'm going to echo what others have said. I don't think it's our place to tell them which line items to take out. I think it's we don't know enough about how their projects all work. I would feel more comfortable saying we're going to take out another 5% or $10,000 or $50,000, whatever a percentage or an amount. And then and this would be the same with all pro, they then come back to the CJC with a revised budget based on that amount and any revised outcomes based on that.
Okay, so for this program, you know, as we said, we can easily justify doing a across the board percentage cut for all of the ones in Group A and all of the ones in Group B that are the same. If we're doing individual percentage cuts, we're going to need justification for why that amount is chosen for each individual grantee. Mm-hmm. Which is a little more difficult, but if you folks have reasons in your pocket, we can do it. So, you know, it sounds like you're more comfortable with the percentage cuts, at least for this particular program. So the question is now, does it make sense to do it by group or just for this particular applicant? And if it's just for this particular applicant, what is the justification for whatever percentage cut you folks are proposing? And Elaine, you have your hand up.
Yes, two things. One is I'm going to switch over to my phone and move out the door in a few minutes, but also, and then I'll be on the phone, you won't see me, but also I think rather than just doing it random, I think I need to know what amount needs to come off to get to a certain point in our list, because we did not rank the middle group into a set. So are we going to try to fund everybody at some level, or are we going to rank the middle group and lose a couple more? And I don't think we've made that decision well enough for me to feel comfortable just guessing in the dark at percentages. And so either we're going to try to fund everybody that's still left at some level, or we're going to rank the middle group and then let a couple more go. And I don't feel like I have a good answer to that.
So if we funded the group A and group B at some amount, the highest amount we could do with percentage cuts for both would be 85% for group A and 65% for group B. We could go back in and rank that middle group and only fund group A, and then however far into group B we get, that is an option. It just depends on which direction you folks want to do, and then we would have to go back and do that ranking within the groups.
Simon again. You can argue the logic every which way we want. My proposal would be that we treat group A, that we just do each program is an additional X% cut. And I think group B, but I think there's more nuance in making suggestions on higher and lower budget cuts to different programs based on what they're proposing to do. Sorry, I would treat each group slightly differently.
So do folks agree with that, to treat each group slightly differently and do an across the board budget cut for group A and then individual line item cuts for group B? Are folks on board with that?
I have a slightly different thought, and that is do what was said for group A, and then the new allowance for group B could also include whether there are some programs that are just going to die if we I mean, I just don't know if we can fund all of group B. That's what doesn't feel clear to me. So
Okay.
I think I need more information about, because a 65% of 80% is going to kill some programs, even if we wiggle a little more nuanced around what we do and don't cut.
So are we good with the percentage cut for group A then? It sounds like we're in agreement. We can do some level of percentage cut for group A, and then we'll go to group B and figure out how to proceed based on what cuts are needed.
I'm sorry, this is Shannon again. Okay, so for like this program that's up on screen right now, so we're
Yes.
saying we're not going to look at like specific like personnel, like different line items. We're not going to consider that. If they are if they are funded in other ways. I looked and it's not just a 1-to-1, it's like a 0.5 of that FTE, so that position is funded otherwise. It looks like it, at least from the budget that they submitted. But so we're not doing that. We're not doing that for group A. Okay.
We can't, I mean, when it comes to looking at other sources of funding, we just kind of have to take their word for it. It's pretty common practice to fund partial FTEs for those government positions, and we just don't have enough information. So we have to take their word for whatever they put in the budget for those. And as other folks mentioned, I mean, we can go through and take out specific positions, but it sounds like more folks are leaning towards doing a percentage cut, and then they can move funds around where they need to, which would probably include personnel, if that makes sense. I'm not sure I'm speaking English at this point. I apologize.
No, I kind of can't, I'm having trouble throwing my brain out, knowing how these grants kind of trickle down through law enforcement. They don't. You know, if there's a percentage cut to this program, it's not, you know, in my experience, and this is just one person's experience, then those funds are going to be used to kind of like bolster just the law enforcement component of the program, and they're not going to like be equally split up. And so with like the deep desire to strengthen the likelihood for collaboration, like true collaboration, where we're not just funding a government entity as a gatekeeper, you know, I would prefer to approve, you know, like direct services, for instance, and not approve the personnel component, because that personnel component, maybe there's an administrative lift, a small administrative lift for holding meetings or something like that. Or, you know, or if there is an actual dedicated, you know, coordinator. But to actually fund DA, full like DA positions or whatever, it just seems like a poor use of those funds when we're trying to, yeah, like kind of ensure that the continuation of these programs across the board. Like it doesn't seem like those positions would necessarily be at risk, like DA positions. I don't think they would cut a DA from the office or a victim advocate from the office if they didn't receive funding.
Yeah, and those definitely are legitimate concerns. I think just bringing it back, we have about 13 minutes or 23 minutes left in the meeting. Bringing it back to something we can vote on. So we had a couple of proposals just to do percentage cut for the group A. So we can take a vote on that, and folks can, you know, if you disagree and you still want to do line item cuts, you can vote against that and we can move from there. But I think it might be a good idea just to get the temperature of the room and try and get the vote on how to proceed with this group A, if that makes sense. Are people on board with that?
I just have to, and I don't know how we can do it without doing item. And I mean, this really lines up with some content of the program. That it
You're going
be
in and out.
community based. I'll withhold. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the sound was going in and out a little bit on your comments, but I just didn't want to miss anything. Apologize.
It's okay. I'll listen.
Rima, in the best of not great options, I think I support a group A, you know, a kind of across the board proposed budget cuts and let them allocate differently. Sharon, very well taken comments, but I don't know how we can control for that.
So the proposed cut amount is 85%. Does anyone want, I mean, a proposed is to maintain 85%.
So just to understand that Rima, sorry, on the allotted is this 888,000.
Right.
And
so it'd be an additional 15% cut off of that is what we're proposing. The staff is proposing to get us closer to that number. You can choose a different percentage, but it would be great to get a motion for some percentage cut.
So percent of 80%, you're saying?
Yeah, and this percentage cut would then be applied across all of Group A.
For whatever reason, my brain, I would love to propose a 10% cut to Group A on this already revised budget, then do the analysis of where we get to with Group B, and then if we have to go back and make that a 15% cut to Group A, then we do that.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, can we do a vote?
Yes, Brandon Brown. I'm not hearing. If maybe you're on mute.
I said I agree on the cuts. Sorry about that.
No
Thank you.
problem. Elaine Walters,
Yes, I agree.
Okay,
Kathleen Meehan Coop,
Given the fact that I have a proposal in Group A, can I vote on the process or do I have to abstain?
we would have enough votes, I believe, if you abstain.
Okay, I'll abstain.
Shannon Wilson,
Yeah, I'm having difficulty. I don't know what to do if I don't feel like I can vote. So I guess
you could,
I'm
you
more,
can vote
I'm probably
no,
gonna,
yeah,
I'm gonna probably say no.
okay.
And say no.
Simon Fulford,
I agree. Support.
Michael Kaiser,
I agree.
Tristan Edwards,
I abstain.
Jimena Ospina Todd.
I say yes.
Okay, that passes.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have agreed then to a 10% cut for all Group A, and then we're going to see where that gets us. Do we need a minute to do that estimate and see how much is left to cut?
Move forward with meeting at this point to do the more new of the Group B.
So we have, if we do that 10, or since we have voted for that 10% reduction to the Group A, we still have a 1.39 million to, or 1.4 million to cut either through not funding some in Group B or percentage cuts or what. So we have 7 minutes left in this meeting. And it might be, I mean, staff would probably want to take a break at this point to figure out how we're going to proceed with B. Are folks able to continue on this meeting, or how do we want to proceed? Because I know it's already almost past the end of the meeting. If you can go to 1:30, we might be able to get through it all.
I'm
not-
able to. I can stay if needed.
Okay.
Could I maybe take a roll call vote on that? I mean, it's not a vote, but just so we can see if we are able to maintain quorum.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Brandon Brown, are you able to stay till 1:30?
Yeah, I can stay till 1:30.
Okay. Elaine Walters,
I'm not. I may be able to read a doctor's appointment in.
okay. I didn't hear all of that, but I heard a no. Kathleen Meehan Coop,
Yes, I can stay.
Shannon Wilson,
Yes, I can stay.
Simon Fulford,
Yes, I can stay.
Michael Kaiser,
All right, could you repeat that again? I was taking another call.
yeah, no problem. Are you able to stay till 1:30?
I can, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tristan
Yeah.
Edwards.
Yes, I can stay.
Okay, and then Jimena Ospina Todd.
Yes, I can stay.
So we will have quorum. I'm not sure quite on abstentions for voting, but we can take that as that comes.
Excellent. So do we need a 5-minute break for staff so we can kind of figure out how that impacts the Group B folks?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break until 1 p.m. and then we'll try and get through the rest of it before 1:30. Right. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back shortly.
And good luck.
All right, we are back on the CJC staff side. Our folks still in the room. Sorry that took longer again than anticipated. I see Kathleen's there. We looked at the numbers and the ranking, and we have a proposal for how to make those cuts that we can do once everyone's back in the room. So just to reiterate, for this group A, we have cut them an additional 10% for those three applications that ended up in group A in the ranking. Group B, this is the ranking that was provided to us during conversation, and looking at their budget and with the numbers that we have, what we're proposing based on this ranking is that we fund the top two. So it would be a 20% cut. So 80% of their remaining budget gets funded. So they're knocked down a little bit based on group A. The next one, LCNSW, we fund at 70%, and that would give us an amount remaining to fund the last two on this list at 50%. I do want to just note, we cannot fund everyone. Obviously, it's a competitive grant. And this was a proposal that makes sense based on the rating that ranking that you guys gave us, while still giving some funding to these folks. You can agree or not, but that's our staff proposal for how to get to the dollar amount we need to still cut. So that would be funding TJC and conflict artistry, or cutting them an additional 20%, cutting LCNSW an additional 30%, and the remaining two on the list, 50%. Simon?
As difficult as that all is, that actually matches some of my thinking and where I was trying to get to. So I support that proposal from the staff. My initial reaction.
If we have somebody else who supports that, we can do a motion and a vote.
I support
Is there a
that.
motion on the table or no?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I guess, is there a motion on the table or no? I'm sorry.
I don't think there is yet, just a voice of support. So if you want to put forth a motion,
I'll do
we
a
would
motion
take
that
it.
we make it sure that we accept your proposal of the 10%, 20%, and 30%.
I'll second
And
that.
just
Yes.
Rima, you might want to clarify the staff proposal. I think we've been talking over each other.
okay, so the staff proposal for this is to fund TJC and conflict artistry at 80% of their budget on top of the staff cuts that have already been worked in. Fund LCNSW at 70% and the RRP and CDR at 50%.
Then my motion would be then to accept the staff proposal.
Excellent. Do we have a second? And I'm just want to remind everyone of conflicts to make sure you voice your conflict.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So do we want to go ahead and do a roll call vote, Avery?
Yes. I am not totally sure if we have 7 folks. So if there's more than one conflict, we may need to revisit that, but I will go ahead and do the roll call.
Thank you.
Brandon Brown.
Just for understanding, are we going one org at a time voting on this, or as the whole from what you just said?
As the whole was the
Well,
motion.
then I'll have to abstain from voting on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Elaine Walters, I believe, has jumped off. Kathleen Meehan Coop,
Yes, agree.
Shannon Wilson,
Agree.
Simon Fulford,
Agree.
Michael Kaiser,
Agree.
Tristan Edwards.
I have to abstain.
Okay. Jimena Espina Todd,
I vote no
okay.
on the cuts for Group B, like that, proposed like that.
Okay. So we do, Rima, need one of the person who abstained to vote.
Okay, so as Rachel mentioned earlier when she jumped on, so we can, given that we need an additional vote to, to get us to quorum, we can have one of the members that abstained vote, and we would recommend that it would be the person least close to the grantee, which might be Tristan. Tristan, your hand's up.
I'm fine doing it that way. It also strikes me that if we did go program by program, we would not have conflicts. I mean, I'm fine doing it either way. It's up to you, Rima. Whatever.
We started this vote, so I'm inclined to just finish it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tristan Edwards,
Yeah, this is it's really hard. And I think I'm understanding that we are in a universe of incredibly hard. I will vote in favor of the staff proposal.
okay, so that passes, Rima.
Okay. So that should get us to where we need to be, and I believe we can stop sharing and show the funding table of where we landed based on that last vote.
I can get that in a slide in
That would be
just a minute.
fantastic. Thank you, Avery. My ability to multitask is out the window at this point. So yeah, again, this was a very hard conversation and it veered off from where we anticipated, but I hope you guys feel like we gave thorough consideration and went through the process in a way that, captured some of those concerns and everything that you had at various points. While she's getting that slide, I just want to express again my deep appreciation for you all for bearing with us throughout this process and being so involved. So here is where we ended up based on that last round of voting. We're a slight little bit under, which will probably be eaten up by adjustments to admin, et cetera. But those would be the recommended award amounts in that blue GAC approved column. And Simon, you have your hand up?
Just thank you. It's a little depressing, but it was a depressing exercise from the get-go, getting from that 8.5 to 4.
Yeah. And I think, the conversation, especially early on the conversation about what additional information to look at, what those standards should be in terms of, cases and staffing and all that. We have talked about it sort of in passing before, but I think that is something to add to the priority list for the upcoming biennium, so we can nail out some of those things and maybe not have quite the level of uncertainty that we had in this process. So just throwing that out there.
So will there
Um,
still be public comment?
Yes, so public comment. We have 5 minutes if folks have comments.
Rima, just to be clear, do you want to, could you announce it's public comment?
Yeah, it's
It didn't
public
sound very
comment.
clear, sorry.
I apologize. I'm it's now public comment, so usually we do 5 minutes, and I'll as soon as the slides go up, we'll get over to that slide as well. So the 5 minute period is starting at 1:18. If folks have public comments, please, raise your hand or let us know that you have something to say. And I see Scott has a hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'll keep it super short. Super appreciative of the hard work that the committee members did on process today and redirecting a couple times. As a taxpayer, super disappointed that the outcomes of the programs versus the cost were not a part of any of the conversation. I don't understand why percentages was the default decision-making process. And if the meeting had started with where it started at 12:30, I think it would have been possible to get a lot more effective work done in communities over the next 2 years than the way that this was guided. And I'll just submit further thoughts in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Looks like we have another hand up from Carly.
Thank you all. I just have a small clarifying question about the final slide that you were just showing with the percentage cuts from all of the different programs. And I was listening into the majority of this meeting, but maybe I missed where you finally landed with the breakdown of the percentage cuts of the Group A programs. I thought it was at 15% across all of those, and then the numbers ended up looking different. And I just didn't hear what you said in terms of, I heard Group B, but not the first group. If you
Group
could
A was an
clarify.
additional 10% cuts. And the full presentation will be on YouTube.
Okay, so I saw numbers
Yeah.
like 72% and 67%, and I wasn't clear on how we got to.
That's taking into account the initial staff recommended cuts, so taking out any unallowables and the 20% budget reductions that folks identified themselves. So the percentages look a little bit weird depending on how all those things fell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public comments?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Hi, this is Andrea. Just wanted to acknowledge how hard this was, and I'm thinking of the programs that were fully cut. And I just know how difficult this application process was, and I just want to send a lot of energy out to all my fellow citizens who are doing this work, and that hopefully we can just keep proving to the state how important this work is so that we can get more funding as we go. And I just appreciate watching the deliberative process among you all. I have a lot of respect for your ability to stay grounded and continue these discussions and figure out a collaborative process on the fly, and expressing the needs and concerns in just a really respectful way. On the other hand, I would appreciate in the future just a little bit more trauma-informed language when needing to talk about cutting, so that in the public sphere it doesn't feel as hard to listen to. I really appreciate that, because I know in our line of work we have to do that as well. Thanks.
Okay, I think we're at the end of our public comment period. So thank you for those comments. So the next steps are we will be presenting the approved awards for the commission in September, and we'll be working on sending those contracts out as soon as possible after that point, which will include the revision, the budget revision process that we discussed. And that is the end of our meeting. Any
Could I ask?
additional comments or questions folks have?
I do, Rima, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
What, and this can be followed up by email to the grant advisory committee or publicly, I don't know, but I'd just be curious what would happen if in the CJC's follow up with any of the funded programs or proposed funded programs, if they say we can't deliver, I don't know, we're rescinding our application, or we don't have a workable solution given the funded allocation. Yeah, what would happen after that then?
Generally, what happens in those cases, depending on the amount of funds that aren't accepted, we would do a supplementary round or something of that nature, but it depends.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Feel free to, reach out to us and let us know anything on your minds. If there's no other questions or comments at this time, I guess we can go ahead and end the meeting. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye.